Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're back now. No action has been taken. And so we're going to begin with our superintendent's comments at this time from Dr. Howard.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. And I'm going to ask Rusty and Amanda to help me monitor. We are wearing masks and trying to be, wearing is caring and trying to do the right thing. So if you have difficulty hearing me, just let me know. I hope I'm not very muffled. We've had a very, very busy couple of weeks, actually a very busy summer, but I have tremendous confidence in our team, and I think we're in a really, really good place. So I just want to remind the group that our August meeting will be as a Google Meet. We won't need to come together in person. So we'll send that link to you, and we'll go over the action items and throughout the board meeting tonight. I did want to ask you about the October board meeting, and if you'll look at your calendars, you don't have to decide this right now, but if you'll look at it between now and Monday, and we may want to move the October board meeting simply because we've changed our school calendar, and we may be able to move it back. We had skipped a week because of the fall break, but you may decide you want to move it back, and we'd like to change that if you want to. So if you'll look at your calendars and see what your personal lives look like, and if you want to adjust the October calendar, we can certainly do that. Obviously, one of the biggest questions that we all have is what's the next steps? And so I want to take some time this evening to share with you everything that we've been doing in an effort to really prepare for a solid and strong opening. We know that this is an unprecedented event. We are in good company with the entire state and the entire country. We've put many things in place. I'm not going to go through every detail, but I want you to feel free to ask any question that you have. One of the things that's linked in here that I'd like to go through, not every single slide, but I'd like for us to at least look through it, is to consider how we're making our decision. We are carefully watching several data points, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. One of the things that is a hot topic is, when will we decide if we need to go back to remote learning? So we provided here in this frequently asked question, and if you go to the next one, so they can see it, there you go. In this frequently asked question, there's really 4 major data points that we're looking at to reconsider whether or not we feel like we need to go back to full-scale remote learning. The first one is the cases at each school by staff member and by students. So we're not going to put them all together, because if you think about somewhere between 10 and 15% being that's just a potential. I'm not suggesting that be the number, but if you've got 10% of your staff who are either not able to come to work because of the illness or not able to come to work because of exposure, then you're talking about significantly reducing the number of staff members. The same kind of percentage potentially on behalf of our students. So that's not the defined number, but just so that you know, that's a data point we're looking at, the cases by staff members and then by students as well. We're also looking at the community spread rates. So we're looking at each day what the rate looks like within our community. So that's a trend that we're watching. We feel like the whole concept behind flattening the curve is to make sure that we're not doing anything that overloads the hospital capacity, to be honest. So obviously, the more it spreads, the more likelihood of people in serious conditions. So we're looking at critical care beds that are available within our region. And then we're also looking at the percentage of COVID tests that are positive so that we can see. Basically, what I'm saying to you is we don't feel like, we are certainly not going to make any decisions in a vacuum. We're kind of looking at a matrix and all of the various data points as we go forward to determine whether or not we need to go back to a remote learning environment. So if levels concern us, our recommendation is that we not close individual classrooms, that we probably look towards closing either a community or the entire district. We could consider by school, and we're open to that, but I think we are concerned that if we get to the point that we're closing by classroom, we can't really guarantee, honestly, that if that child's if there's enough in that classroom and they've been in that school and they've been down, even though we're doing everything in our power to appropriately sanitize, we feel like school or community is a better closure instead of having individual classrooms, because we'll just be opening and closing and I think it'll be messy. So we'd like to recommend that. The next one is a hot topic, and I don't know if you want to get into this discussion, but if the community or district are in remote learning due to a public health concerns, extracurricular activities may be suspended as well. So that's a decision that we can make if we get to that point. I intentionally said maybe because there are some athletic events that take place outside and that you may be able to continue to very carefully monitor and have kids participate in. But I will ask for the board to give us some feedback on that. The one thing that I will say in talking with people all over the region, all over the state, is I don't want to make a black and white decision too early and limit our students, because honestly, they need those activities. Mm-hmm. They have had such an irregular environment. And the logical thing in my mind is if we can't be at school, we can't be playing sports. Mm-hmm. That's the logic. But I think it would be better if we look at it on a case-by-case basis and potentially consider, for example, cross country. Those kids can stay 6 feet apart. They can run. They can. Mm-hmm. It's good for them. They can. They can monitor. We probably just want to look at it. But I'd love your feedback on it. So, thoughts on it?
I'm trying to agree. I agree that if we don't believe it's safe, we don't meet the requirements to be in school. I'm not totally in favor of continuing athletics. Specifically football, but I'm willing to wait until that time. Okay. I just want to share with everybody, and I have before kind of my position on it, and nobody wants. I understand the kids need it. Mm-hmm. I want to see it. I enjoy it, watching it. But at the same time, I think we just have to make sure we send out a consistent message.
I do too. I do too. And I don't mind us looking at it case by case, just to see how things are and what that would look like as far as our kids' contact.
So GHSA has provided some guidance, but again, every region, every area of the state is different, and so they're really encouraging, and while they've got some parameters, they're encouraging each community to manage the levels. For example, if we continue, we have ball games, what's the percent of attendance that we allow? Right now, we're aiming towards 25 to 50%. So instead of having the stands full, if we have football games, we'll probably have to limit it to 25 to 50%. So we'll work on all those details. I just wanted to make sure that the board was not surprised by any kind of decision that we make internally that's probably going to be a hot topic, and I respect and understand why. Then the last bullet there is that closure length would be reevaluated every 10 to 14 days, so that we'll have to look at those quarantine times and how we can diminish the numbers of cases. And if we do have to close when we come back, would be dependent on the same data points. We'd have to see, how we're doing. So we just wanted to remind you that we have worked diligently to prepare and to be exemplary ready. I also want you to know that GINA has really supported the schools. We've gotten to over 15,000 masks from GINA. We've gotten hand sanitizer. We've gotten PPE. We've gotten a lot of materials that we're distributing out into our schools. I just want to share these with you. These were masks that were provided by GINA, and they fit very good on kids. And we sent them off and had the EJ and the JC stamped on them so that we could encourage kids to wear their gear. So those have been delivered to our middle school and high schools. And masks are a big conversation point, and I know that. So as we scroll through here, I won't read the whole thing to you, but I'd really just like for you to, if there are any questions that you have, these are the same FAQs that I shared with you last time, and Dr. Blankenship is going to share with you during personnel presentation our plan for return for students and staff if they have to go out. So that's a very detailed process. But these are points of effort that you can review, you can share with constituents and people that ask you the things that we have done and will continue to do. So there's tremendous effort going into that. Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
I was reading about the bus transport.
Yes, sir.
What about, is there a section about bus transport for athletic events?
So that's a good question. What we have decided internally is that we will transport, if we're having athletics, we will transport the athletes. But For example, the band is not going to go to away games. The band will perform here, but we're not going to train, and the band is good with that because it's a lot. So we're going to limit the numbers of people. Probably what we're planning on, use the same number of buses, but just spread out football and cheerleaders and have the band.
So sideline cheerleaders will go to away events?
As of right now, yes. Yeah. So. All right. The other thing that, oh, absolutely. The other thing that we wanted to be very honest about is the social distancing. So Dr. Blankenship and several folks are helping to start a campaign, Wearing is Caring, and we've got our athletes and our students, and our beloved teachers and things like that, who will start submitting videos where I wear a mask because I care. And we understand, I certainly understand the controversial nature of this, but the bottom line is that the CDC and the Department of Public Health say there's 3 major things that we can do: proper hygiene, socially distance, and wear a mask. And so when we're going into a public school and a public setting, we have a professional obligation to understand, have great conversations with teachers and with students. I did a welcome video that we're going to share with students about talking about we're a part of something bigger, we're part of a community, and so this is important to help us stay in school. We want to stay in school, and the best way that we can stay in school is to help prevent the spread, and this is one of the strategies to do that. So the reality is, though, that we know we will not be able to fully social distance. We have stickers on floors, we have directionals, we have barriers for teachers that are going to be face-to-face with kids, like reading groups and so forth. We have plexiglass. We have lots and lots of precautionary strategies that we put in place. But there are going to be times that kids are not socially distanced. That's part of it, which is why we offered a pretty robust and amazing distance learning option that Mr. Nicholson will share with you. So that's all the things that we've done. I want to take just a minute to brag on all of our schools and how hard they have worked, and they're just doing everything differently. Everything they've had to. I mean, you take the opening of school book and put it in the trash can. They've had to do everything different. And here are a couple of examples I wanted to share with you. We asked them to do a virtual welcome back. So every school has done some sort of a virtual open house. This is an example of East Jackson's elementary schools, and you can see here that they sent this to all the parents and all the students, and so they actually have all of the open house information that they would have had face-to-face. They have it right here before them. And then an example of Jackson County High School's open house. I just wanted to give you a flavor of an elementary and a high school, and East Jackson High School's done one very similar, just like the elementary schools have done things similar to East, but East sent me theirs today, and I was just excited and looking through it, so I thought I'd share it. Jackson County, this is their virtual open house, and so you can see there that every teacher has gone in and done a video. So they have, let's just see, Matt Bolt, and he's probably going to be embarrassed that I call on him, but since he's an alumni, I'll call him out. And I'm just giving you an example of what they have done. So they do a short video, introduce themselves, talk about what the class is going to be like, and then you can also see that he's got his outline for his classes and so forth. So everything that a student would have gotten when they brought everybody together, they now get in a distance format. So just think we have to really lift up our teachers, because these are all things that they've had to do in addition to. So they have really worked hard. I mean, and in a very short time, they've pulled off things like this, and I'm exceptionally grateful for the hard work of our school leaders and our teachers. So
are they sharing? I didn't see the first slide. Are they sharing maps for people that are in the new school or new to the community?
They are. They've got some maps that even have traffic patterns, and so that they've outlined like which doors you go out and things like that. So they're sharing maps that have those kinds of things. I've put in here just for your reference. This is the letter from the Department of Public Health, and it has lots of references. Again, that's not something. It's just a point of reference for you so that you know some of the things that we're going by. I did share with you this, but this is a formal kind of guide on what we're going by, and we'll stay in constant communication with you. My prayer is everybody implements the strategies, and we have very little impact with spread. That is the ultimate goal. But the likelihood that we have some spread is pretty great, and we know that. So I put in here for you as well today's most recent COVID update. And you can see that this is the part that's always concerning, is so 83% of our the critical care beds, 87% of our critical care beds are in use. So when we feel like if that gets to 92 or 93%, that's kind of alarming, and we're going to have to really take that as a data point to consider. So, all right. And outside of that, are there any other opening of school questions, topics that you have?
I have a request.
Please.
Kind of.
Yes.
So when some announcements are made, and I don't find out about them until I look at them on social media, and people will call me and ask me, hey, why has this decision been made? And I don't know about it until then. I have to go on social media and find out. Is there a way we can be contacted before that's been on social media?
Absolutely. Do you have an example of the mask?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I appreciate
And I just need to know, first of all, what it is, and that way I can prepare myself for a response, an appropriate response.
Right. Well, I appreciate you asking that, and I think that the way that we handled that, I own that could have been improved. We did say to folks, and I responded to every single email that I got and said, well, we're not mandating, we're simply asking folks.
Yes.
And the teachers they're reasonable. People are reasonable.
Sure.
Now, some people on social media are not reasonable,
No.
but our teachers
Yes.
and people in our schools are reasonable. So we have spoken to every person that I've had a conversation with has said, okay, I understand. We said it's not mandated, it's requested. Yes. So
and that's after I understood what was going on, then I could give an appropriate response. I said, well, you know, this is, but so I got caught blindsided a little bit, and that was not a comforting feeling. So
well, I certainly apologize, and I will tell you that it's a political topic that we know of, and it's unfortunate that people grab to things like that, but we're a public entity, and if you ask me, I wouldn't wear a mask. I mean, but we're just in a weird place.
Yes,
but a lot of that information is in here, right?
Oh yeah, it is. And I intentionally started trying to copy you on all of them. I didn't want to flood your email, but I wanted you to know that I was responding to every single person.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was the same as what one of our parents called me on. I said, yes, it's exactly the same because it is the same response.
Yeah.
Stay consistent.
Right. It's a consistent message. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I think Bill and I talked a little bit about it. I got lit up over the mask and then the standardizing of the mask but I've had some conversations with Mr. Wester at the high school. And I think the thing I've learned with this is that people out there aren't cutting us really any slack. Some of them have been a little hard to get along with, but not all. So those are the people that, don't have any decorum, and they just kind of let us have it, run out of shoot. But the thing is, our staff has been responsive and open. I know the ones that I've called, and they're willing to look at everybody's point of view and kind of do the right thing. So, as long as people are willing to not be overly critical and offer good feedback, I think it turns out good. And they start out, they start out a little sideways.
Yeah.
So the message that we have delivered, and I sat in on West Jackson Elementary School's faculty meeting today, and I'm scheduled to sit in every school's, one of their faculty meetings between now and the first of school. I spent an hour with them just talking, answering questions, making sure that we're on the same page, and I want to do that with any school that will have it. But we are asking our teachers to extend grace and compassion to our kids. And we're also asking our community to extend grace and compassion because nobody in this generation has ever done this. So it's, I am lifting up whatever the governor's asking to do. I would want to be the governor. I would want to be the president. So everybody is navigating new waters. It is very sad to me that we have folks that wait to blow holes in things when we're making decisions in the best interest of kids, and we've done our research and we've shared what that research is. Yeah. So the vast majority of our community have some trust, and I am grateful to them. And the ones that I have spoken with have been very level-headed. In the conversation with Mr. Wester and I have spoken early on, we were probably a little more tight with the expectations with masks in terms of what they could have on them. Thinking about what's happening in our community outside of Jackson County, the civil unrest.
Yeah.
And you really want to, you want to trust, and guess what? 98% of our kids won't think a thing about that.
No.
But you don't want to create a distraction that may then take away from the whole core of what we're trying to do with our kids. So, but I think they've renegotiated that, and I think they're going to have a little bit more flexibility and trust that kids are going to follow what they would in a dress code. And if it aligns to the dress code, and it's a color that's acceptable, that, you know, we just have to continue to extend grace and compassion to our kids and to our teachers and leaders. Our leaders are lifting. This is a heavy lift.
Absolutely.
This is major.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, feel free at any time to give me a call or text. I mean, I am grateful for the feedback, and we want to do a good job, and we always have the kids and our staff at the core of our decision making. So, with that being said, Mr. Gilbert, I am going to turn it over to you. But let me say one thing. You may have heard some conversation. You understand, and Todd will talk about this, but we are starting school on August the 12th. We are planning to start both in-person instruction and virtual instruction.
Mm-hmm.
We would like to ask our community, and we'll make this public tomorrow if once you all give us the go ahead. We'd like to consider the virtual opening on August 12th, kind of a soft opening, and then do the heavy duty lifting on the 17th, because we've got teachers who are trying to do both. Yes. And so they'd like to get started with the kids who are there first and focus on that, and then do do most of it. So we're gonna connect with those kids. We're gonna welcome them, let them know who their teacher is, and so forth, and then give them some guidance until Monday. But we won't actually start in full scale in some schools until the 17th. So. Yeah. All right, sorry about that, Mr. Gilbert. It's all you.
Thank you, Dr. Howard. One of the things that Dr. Howard has said a number of times is we need to run a few plays this year, and we all totally agree. We talk about it all the time. Is let's get back to school, get our students there, and we're going to learn a lot day one, day two, and etc. So it's an exciting time. I will share with you. I did share with you the monthly projects report, and there it is coming up, and it's what we do every month, and it's got an outline, a summary of each of the 4 SPLOST projects. It's got, in this case, there was no new financial information, so I did add to the agenda. I put in the mid-month that you've already received that does have all of the financial information, and then lots and lots of photos. I was out there last Friday and walked these sites, and between me and everybody else taking photos, there's lots to share. So if you have any questions about the projects, please ask now or bring them to me on Monday or send an email, and we'll be glad to answer. Each project is doing extremely well. The gymnasium air conditioning project's done, but the high school, East Middle, Empower really, really well. We appreciate the work that all of our team members have done.
Mr. Gilbert, can you hear me?
I can.
So there was some concern about East Jackson Middle School being completed. Will it be done?
Yes, sir. We talked this week at length in our team meetings, and aside from that, with Brent Bram, our project manager, and everything is planned out. The issue this week that we started with was rain, and with thunderstorms in the afternoon, they were paving. I believe it was last Friday. They had all the plans to stripe and finish that. But yes, there will still be work going on. The Ag Science building will be through the fall, but everything else should be done.
What about the, sorry.
No, go ahead.
What about the flooring? I know there was a flooring issue up front there. Is that done?
There's some carpet in the reception area that is, Mr. Patton may be off.
Yeah, I'll pipe in on that.
Okay.
The reception area will be complete before school starts. That total project was never scheduled to complete before school starts. So there will still be some roofing and grading going on. The ag building will not be complete. That's all still on schedule for an October, November completion.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Josh.
So the ag would be completed by October, you said?
Probably the end of October, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We had steel delivered for this week, so.
Okay.
Yep. Very good.
Great, thanks, Josh. The next thing I'd like to share is the facility opening report. Can you hear me all right?
I did, but Mr. Cronick had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I was talking.
He said he talked to me. Okay, go ahead. Facilities.
Okay. It's been a real pleasure just to watch our team members led by Josh Patton and Mike Davis and Chris Martin and Sheila Briggs. They've really done a great job in facilities. So we provided you just a 4-page summary in the same manner that you looked at school nutrition in June and teaching and learning in July. We wanted us to share a few items with you. And the slide that's up now are, of course, the 4 projects that were underway, and those take quite a lot of time and energy. And then also this summer, our team worked on renovations to Gordon Street Center, the cafeteria and unfinished space there, which looks very, very good. So that's been a lot of work on top of the norm. We also, and I labeled it special projects, we put in 8 new portables this year, and we also did the security initiatives that you approved some time ago. And some of those are still in process, and we kind of held back a little bit on implementation just to give our school administrators and teachers a break. Trying to throw more on everybody at one time is difficult. The next item on there, if you'll scroll just a little further, this is a piece of a list. It may include most items, but as you know, the summer has been full, absolutely full of tracking down, placing orders for all the COVID-related items. So you can see the list here, and our warehouse has got lots in it. We've got lots still to come. GEMA, as Dr. Howard said, provided lots of good product for us. Digital thermometers, fill stations in our schools for bottles for the kids, water bottles, plexiglass screens, just across the board. There's been a tremendous effort on that. And that, again, has been on top of the normal work that we have in the summertime. And then the last page is kind of just a little bit about the regular work. But this year was a little bit different with the COVID pandemic. And our team really took just a special interest in inspecting buildings, monitoring, making sure that while nobody's there, that everything was working and ready when the decision was made for people to come back. So I'm mighty proud to be part of that team. They shuffled people, they've shuffled workloads. They've really done a good job in ensuring that as everybody comes back, that we have rigorous cleaning and rigorous disinfecting. So my hat's off to that team. I appreciate them very much.
So they are our excellence in service winners for Monday night. So you will see this again posted because and that is a very, very small staff. I mean, you basically have a few people managing a lot of projects. So I second Mr. Gilbert's and his support of them, but also his celebration of them. So thank you.
I would also say that there are plant managers, there are lead custodians, and our technicians. I won't name any of them because I'd begin to leave ones out, but they do yeoman's work out there. It's fantastic.
We've just given them a whole new layer this year.
That's right.
It really has.
Face shields on here. Now, who are they going to be provided for?
So Ms.
The face shields.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Wheeler's asking about face shields, and we have 2 things going on with face shields. One is like our primary grades teachers who are going to be working with kids on a regular basis. So the research, the science tells us that you need to wear your mask and your face shield. But there will be times when you're doing phonics or you're doing things.
If they need to.
That's right. Where they need to they need to take their mask off. So it leaves them out. Clear ones.
Clear,
and we've ordered clear masks too to have replacements for teachers. So we've ordered clear masks and then the face shields. And honestly, some even of our high school teachers have asked, if they could if they're at their desk and they're far enough away and they're trying to present, it's hard sometimes just for hours to wear this. If they have a face shield when so that's who will be using this.
Okay.
And that's one of those items that we'll look at day 1, day 2, day 3 I think it'll take a little time for everyone to figure out exactly what they need. Yeah. And then we'll work to supply as many as we can.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Go ahead.
That's another this week. That whole area they finally finished up in between the school. That was amazing.
It is amazing.
I could not believe how good that looked.
Mr. Pack and Mr. Gilbert, if you did not hear Mr. Cronick, he was commenting on how nice the courtyard area looks at West Middle, between, I think that's between the 7th grade hall and over there. So thank you. We've got some of the same plans for East Middle as well, that once we do the grading. So that does make a very big difference. It took another year. I mean, you know, it was beyond kind of like we are staging with East Middle, but it looks beautiful.
Yep. Over time, everything gets better and better. So we're grateful for the board's support in those projects. The last thing I'd share with you, and this was following a discussion we had prior to this, was about bringing to you facility use requests from outside groups, specifically the ones that work with our students. So there are 2 here. One, they're both volleyball. One is for Jackson County High School and one is for South Jackson. These are groups we've worked with for some time. And as you can see in each of them, they have 50% plus of their athletes are our students. So we wanted to give you the option, or actually you asked for it, and giving you the option to move this forward on Monday night as to whether you would want us to move in this direction. Obviously, if we pivot as a school district, outside users would be notified immediately, as they have so far. But these are, one of them is Wednesday nights and Sunday nights, and one is Sunday evenings. They want to begin this month, and I've provided you all of the information we asked them about how they would clean, disinfect, prevent others from coming in the buildings, prevent congregating in the parking lot, that sort of thing, and both provided all the answers that we asked for. So if you would like to move those forward, we will put them on the agenda as action items for Monday night.
So I think that's something to discuss. I think that thinking out loud, it's better that falls on your end. As long as they're our kids,
right.
I don't have an issue. I really don't have an issue. But I think if it needs to fall under the same guidelines that our athletics follow.
Agreed.
If we have to shut down, that has to go as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That has to shut down as well.
And they would have to understand that up front.
Yes. I think it's all of our same guidelines.
Yeah.
Are they part of their fee is to pay somebody or pay our staff to clean?
Yes, and they will disinfect as well.
They're going to pay our staff to clean.
If needed, but in their outlines, they have put very detailed cleaning processes in that they'll do on every occasion. Now, on Wednesday nights, we'll have people in the building, perhaps, but if it's not cleaned, if it's not ready the next day, that would be grounds to stop activities until we figure it out, and we will put, we'll ask other people to come in if we need to.
So they would provide the
Yes.
cleaning. Our folks wouldn't do that.
But
No.
there's
Yeah.
sport organizers that sanitize any individual recreation station before and after this. Who's the sport organizer then?
That's their group.
But is that the head coach? Is that a parent?
I think it's the group of coaches that would have to do it, and we've asked them not to allow any others in the building in terms of parents and siblings.
Yeah. And then, so what time does our staff report to schools in the morning?
6:30 or 7.
Yeah.
Staff is 6:37 or, okay. And I mean, is that, I know these people are doing extra already. So are they going to go in? Who's going to be responsible then to go in and make sure everything's been cleaned? What's the procedure and process in that?
Josh, do you want to answer that one? I'll be glad to, but
I couldn't hear all of it.
I think the question was on the morning after the use, who's responsible to check it out and make sure it's okay?
That will be an issue. This year with our hours, we've shifted everybody, trying to get them closer to working in the afternoon. So 7 o'clock this year will be the earliest that a custodian gets to the building. So, it could be an issue at that point.
Right. Would it be okay if I interject just for a second? This is Jason Wester from the high school. The organization actually does pay our custodians to clean up after they finish. They already provide that as an outside payment to the custodians, just so everyone's aware. At least at our high school, our custodians are compensated additionally for helping to make sure that the area is clean and sanitized. They've done that all the way back to our relationship. So that will be part of the process. It will be a continuation. So we will not be asking any staff to do anything extra. And as a matter of fact, our custodians appreciate the opportunity to get the extra pay from this organization outside of their normal hours. So it is not anything extra for our staff.
And that to me makes me more comfortable with the situation.
Yeah.
I'd rather our folks be doing it.
So thank you for that, Mr. Weston.
Yes, sir.
That's great information. Thank you.
What about
Jackson would be the difference in that one.
Josh,
But Top Flight has also been leasing from us for probably 2 or 3 years.
and Josh, did they do the same thing for Mr. Homer and the folks at South Jackson?
No, ma'am. They've been at multiple buildings.
Yeah.
They do pay as part of their facility rental. They have in the past. They paid for custodial fees. On this one, it was different. We can certainly take a look at that. It's kind of adding on a little bit more. I'd rather them just take more of the Jackson County High School approach and do it.
Yes.
Honestly, that way it's kind of we're not taking them away from what they would normally be doing.
Okay. Well, let's Mr. Gilbert, you and I can talk tomorrow, and we can follow up with the South Jackson group and see if we can take the same approach.
Absolutely.
All right. Very good.
I didn't hear all that. So he wants to South Jackson to do what they do at the high school.
And as Mr. Hollis stated, it's not that you don't trust people, it's just that our standard disinfecting procedure needs to be the standard.
That's right. And somebody else might not follow our standards.
That's right. Yes. And that
It's other justices.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gilbert. And Anna is joining us remotely. And so, Anna, I will let you have the privilege of sharing a lot of information, but there's a good bit of outstanding, positive information.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. Usually my list is pretty short, and I can talk real fast and get done real fast. But it's that time of year where we've got quite a few pretty significant financial items on the docket. But I wanted to start with SPLOST. And if you will notice, our SPLOST revenue, $833,000.
It is amazing.
That is amazing.
Pretty amazing.
It is.
I mean, especially when we were all kind of worried and concerned about what this pandemic was going to do to our sales tax. But obviously, people's shopping habit and toilet paper needs and so forth have really helped us out. So, I mean, again, I do have to remind everybody that they started collecting some of the taxes on internet sales. So that's part of the reason for the increase. But I also feel like they haven't got a total hold on and complete control of that internet sales tax yet. So I have a feeling that when that all really gets put together and aligned, that we're going to be getting close to $1 million a month.
Yeah, we get $1 million a month, and
That'll be.
I know, Mr. Chronic, that was your goal, was $1 million a month. So we're trying.
We're gonna need it because it's, we're gonna have ongoing construction needs with the numbers looking like they're, with the growth that's coming, so.
Yeah, well, if you look at even, 3 or 4 years back, and we were averaging 500,000 to 600,000. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's phenomenal to see the growth.
Yeah.
All right, you want to look at the financial reports?
So we are looking great for this point in the year. We have completed 8% of the year, and our expenditures at this point are right at 8%, which is very good because, of course, there's all of the beginning of the year one-time expenses that happen in July and August, and a lot of renewals and payments that happen at the beginning, and also, of course, schools purchasing their items that they need to get school started. So being right at 8%, right exactly where we are at this point in the year.
And I probably should have shared the fund balance comparison first because that's the starting point for our budget. So I've got that up now. Which you want to speak to what our FY20 fund balance was?
Yes, we did end up well over 17.5 million, and if you look at where we ended this month compared to this month last year, you can see that we ended at almost $4 million higher than we were at this point last year. So we're doing, everything's great. We're looking good, and it's definitely a good place to be in for being able to handle the state funding cut that we're having to deal with this year, and be able to do that without having any detrimental cuts to any program or any staff. So we're looking good still.
Anna, I did not link in the final report, and I'm happy to do that, but I have it right here for Ms. Wheeler to sign. Do you want to speak to them about the audit report? The audit this year?
So we did finally have the exit conference for our fiscal year 19 audit, and of course, it was clean, no findings, everything was in good order. They audited the food service program for federal compliance purposes, and there were no issues or findings with that side of the audit, and so we were very thrilled to have another good year.
Outstanding. Thank you for your hard work. And I think Erin is on here. I don't know whether Rose is on here, but thank you all of your team, because I know that was really challenging. We kind of went out right in the middle of finishing up the audit process. And so it was
so it got delayed a little bit from what we expected, but everything got finished up and we're done with that one, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from them to start the next year here before we know it.
And that was all completed virtually, wasn't it?
All of the exit conference, the several things at the end, some of the final things that they requested. Yes, all of that, a lot of that was done virtually.
Yeah, it's great.
It is great. All right, talking about great. Anna, you want to speak to the digest and the 5-year, the 5-year digest that we're going to share with the board?
Certainly. So this is the 5-year history that we are required by state law to advertise, and this year our recommendation is to levy the full rollback millage rate. So that if the board members agree and vote, then that means no hearings, no tax increases for any property owners except for that was reassessed. And we, again, are able to do all that even with the state funding cut. So the growth that's happening in our county is sometimes scary, but also at the same time, it's it's helped us out and is helping us keep the millage rate, or actually not even keep it, but actually roll it back. So I think
let's pause there for a minute, Anna, if you don't mind, and give the board just a chance to talk through that. You and I have talked about this at length, but I feel pretty confident that this is the right thing to do, especially with our fund balance like it is. So unless you have a different thought for the rollback rate.
I think it'd be wise for us to do that. And I know in the past, that's one of the things that we had promised, that we would roll back as soon as we could do that for our taxpayers. So
yes, and we actually
gone back to the midpoint. So we have had to have hearings because it was actually a tax increase. But this time it would be all the way back and no tax increase. So this will be the first time since I've been here that we've been able to do that.
Same, the first time since I've been here too. I mean, since I've been here that we've been able to go to the rollback rate. But we're almost, if you look at 2015, if we're just shy of having rolled back over the last several years almost a whole mill. So hopefully by next year we can get to that point where we have been able to roll it back a full mill over the last few years.
Yeah.
All right. You want to speak to the budget a little bit, Anna? We can talk about the millage rate. Let's just go ahead to I think you obviously shared the comparison, but I've got here the way we look at the various rates. So where we are right now is 18.65, and there's the midpoint at 18.523, and then the full rollback would be 18.3, which is what we're recommending. Any questions?
So knows how I feel on that one. I am definitely for rollback. I think so. Good
Glad
thing.
you said that. I was wondering about it.
Where are you? No, I think, especially, good news is good news, and I think that to me is something positive that we can give out right now.
And I think especially at this time, it's very, very fitting for us to do this.
All right, Anna, thank you for your work on preparing the 3 different considerations, but I think I hear the board pretty confident that your recommendation of going to the full rollback is probably acceptable. So I'm going to share the hearings and the timelines. We still have to have a final budget hearing, but we don't have to have the millage increase hearing. So you want to speak to the timeline?
Yeah. So we actually don't have to have a hearing. We just have to actually have the board adopt the final millage rate. But we do, of course, over the next couple of weeks, have to advertise our 5-year history to the public. And on top, including that, we still have to have our budget hearings. We have to have the 2 budget hearings, but we're able to fit all of that in to our normal meeting schedule so that by September, we will be able to adopt the amended budget and approve the final millage rate.
Okay.
All right. So very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Sounds
Thank you.
great.
So we'll get going and getting things published and taking care of it on that side. Right now, we have it planned for Gordon Street Center. They've done a beautiful job. We've had some professional learnings over there, so it's spaced out. So we didn't want to do it this month, but the only thing constant right now is change. So we will just all keep in touch. And if we need to go to a Google Meets or a different format, but other than that, we're advertising for those to be at Gordon Street. And if something happens and we do end up going to a Google Meet, Anna, I would say that because of the advertisement, I would at least need to be there to facilitate, because if it's publicized at Gordon Street, we've got to be at Gordon Street, correct?
Yes, unless we changed our mind in time to basically re-advertise, because we've got over a month in our timeline here since we're not having to have the other hearings.
Okay, perfect. We'll just take it one day at a time like everything else. But all things considered, that's very good news. So I'll put forward here your amended budget, and you want to talk through some items that you included in the budget?
Yes. So this recommended budget or amended budget does include tax revenues using the rollback rate of 18.39. And with that, we have also included 5 additional teachers, or the cost of 5 additional teachers for any growth that might happen. That's not to say we'll have to have them, but that is in the budget. And we've also included some additional funding for the PPE items that we are having to buy and items that we're having to install. There have been a couple of other things that have come up since the initial budget was presented, like the Pick My Kid program for transportation, and Edgenuity, being able to have access to that and not have to rely on Foothills for access to that program. So we have included some of those items in there. So our expenses in the amended budget have increased a little bit, but the revenue has increased enough to offset. And instead of dipping into fund balance almost $2 million that was presented in the initial budget, we will only be dipping into fund balance about $1.4 million. And that, again, is all projected because the amount that I have included in the budget for a midterm adjustment is extremely conservative. And so between what we'll probably end up getting in our midterm adjustment and the way that all of our programs and departments are extremely conservative in their spending, it's very possible that we won't dip into fund balance at all.
Sure. Phenomenal.
Great.
Phenomenal.
It's fantastic. Roll back the rate and not use fund balance and still end and Anna and I have talked about this, and we talked briefly today that we really need to stay. I never thought we'd have this conversation, but we really need to keep our fund balance between 12 and 15%. We don't really want to go over 15%. So I'm glad that you put some extra teachers in there. We're likely going to need those with the growth, and next year we can really evaluate where we are. Hopefully the economy stays steady at least. So.
Sure.
All right, Anna, thank you so much for your hard work, and again, Aaron and your whole team. But this is a very good place to be, and as Mr. Hollett said, it's kind of nice to be able to share some good news in light of what we've been sharing lately.
Amen. I agree.
Right at the end of the tunnel. Sure.
Any other questions for Anna or for anybody else? For finances.
As always, if anything does come up in the next few days before Monday, before you vote on this, then reach at any time. We can discuss any of these things in further detail.
So the line item on Monday that would be a recommendation is your recommendation for the full rollback rate. Then we'll have the 2 hearings in September. We'll approve the budget in September. So this is just a recommendation for our millage rate. All right. I know that I saw Dr. Blankenship on there. Dr. Blankenship, you want to pick up with our enrollment update?
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. As you can see here, and because we haven't started school yet, our enrollment is still a preliminary enrollment, but you can see that we are up about 177 students over the ending enrollment last year. So as we always do, we're watching that very carefully. I'm having conversations with administrators, talking about different grade levels where they're seeing an increase in enrollment, and so we're keeping an eye on that. But know that we're being very strategic in the few hires that we are having to make, and looking at individuals that may be able to go into certified positions should the need arise, so that we have the ability to have a little bit of flexibility there. So moving on into the personnel recommendations, you will see when that's shared with you that we do have a couple of teacher positions. The 5th grade position at South Jackson, we have a recommendation there, as well as we had a resignation at Jackson County High School, and we have been able, fortunately, to already secure a replacement with some shifting of personnel in the building, and then making an additional hire. Other than that, the personnel list is pretty mundane. There's a few transfers from position to position, and then we do have some resignations of bus drivers and a couple of other positions. So probably the bulk of what I'd like to talk to you about tonight, though, is just the tremendous work that our Student Support Services Division has done in order to prepare for our return to school, and how we work with our employees and our students when the need arises. So I just want to give a big thank you to Rhonda Brewer, especially for her leadership. And I spoke with all of our clinic assistants today, and they are ready to return to work. And their motto is keep calm and carry on. So they got their training today. They're prepared. We talked through some scenarios, and I feel very confident that they're going to be able to go into the school buildings and execute pretty much flawlessly. And then, of course, Jennifer Halley has been such a tremendous support in that role too. And not only has she been helping with some of the contact tracing that we've been doing, the little bit that we've had, but also in helping to get our alternative program up and running. So they have met with all 5 students that we have in our alternative program, and they feel very good about the year moving forward. So to take a look at what we have here on the screen, we have developed a flow chart and a decision tree, for lack of a better term, for us to follow whenever we have a situation where we have an employee who has symptoms or maybe has been exposed to someone who has tested positive for coronavirus. So I won't step you through every single step on here, but just know that at each point we ask a question, and based on the answer, whether it's yes or no, that leads us to a different part of the chart. In the center of the chart, and I feel like I've shown this to you before, but I've talked through it a lot over the past few weeks, so maybe that's why it feels that way. We do revise this chart as the CDC updates their guidelines, along with the Department of Public Health. And so our latest revision on the employee chart was actually July 31st. So you can see if we have someone who has presented symptoms or has been in contact with someone, close contact with someone who has tested positive, we have different quarantine scenarios that they need to follow, and that's based on those CDC guidelines. And so we follow this decision tree to get to the right scenario for that person. Rhonda Brewer is doing a tremendous job of keeping track of all of the individuals that we have to contact, and then doing the contact tracing that the Department of Health has asked us to assist with. And to that point, we also have a similar chart for students. So when students return, or the few athletes that we have had to work with who have had situations, we have followed that student chart as well. This goes along with an internal communication flow that we have, which I think is really, really important for you to know that we have a very clear flow of communication that delineates who needs to be spoken to from the first step, the first time we're notified, all the way through till we get to the point where we are talking with the Department of Health or any other individuals that we need to speak with. We also have developed general templates for communication with our stakeholders when that's appropriate and we need to do that. And we will we tailor those communications to fit the needs. So we have a basic template, but then depending on the situation and what's going on, we will tailor it to fit that need. I think I saw a question there, Dr. Howard. Will parents be notified if a teacher tests positive? Anytime there is a confirmed positive case and there's potential exposure and close contact, we will notify the appropriate parts of the community that need to be notified. So if that's a classroom, if it's a school, we'll make that notification. We prepare that notification and then send it to the principal or the supervisor if it's within a department in the school system, and then they send that out because they are typically the ones that have the right contact lists to do that. You can see here the student flow chart. It looks very similar to the employee flow chart. And so again, just if they have presented symptoms, then you're really going to follow across the top part of the chart. And if they've not, but they have been exposed to someone, then you follow along the left-hand side down, and that leads you to the appropriate action that you need to take. And it works the same way for the employee chart. Are there any questions that anyone has about that information?
Will the student flow chart go home with the students so the parents know?
That's a great question. Dr. Blankenship, Mr. Cronick just asked if the student flow chart will go home with the parents so that they know. We definitely have it posted on the website and we have it available, but it's probably not a bad idea. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's a great idea. I mean, both of these charts are public information. So we have provided these to the schools to disseminate in whatever way they see fit. I think that's a great suggestion because parents need to know what's expected should their child be exposed or test positive.
Great suggestion. The other piece that we probably just want to, since we are in a public meeting, this is really important because we are asking parents to help us in terms of self-monitoring before they come to school. So we are providing the no-touch thermometers and so forth, but we're not taking the temperature of every child as soon as they get to school every day. We're asking parents to monitor that, and then our teachers are going to help us monitor students' health while they're there, but we're not screening every single child every day.
And Dr. Howard, thank you for bringing that up because that is based on the CDC's guidelines and recommendations. They don't recommend a wholesale screening of students every day. There's a lot of issues that could arise with that if we do that at the school. So we are asking parents to do that at home. We're also expecting our staff to do that at home and then follow the appropriate procedures if they are unwell. I will tell you that we are taking steps in the clinic. Our clinics have been they have always had good practices in place to keep well students and sick students separated. But we have been very deliberate in identifying procedures and locations within the clinic or near the clinic that can be designated. So if you think about a pediatrician's office, they typically have a well side and a sick side. So we have designated well areas and sick areas for our clinics and then have developed procedures to go along with that. We know that we need to minimize traffic in the hallways and movement around the building. So we have also looked at how we can provide some support to teachers in the classroom without them having to send students up to the clinic for absolutely everything. So there are some very minor things that they can deal with in the classroom. We're going to provide them with Band-Aids. As Dr. Howard said, we have a lot of contactless thermometers, and those will be distributed throughout the grade level hallways for access. So if a teacher thinks that a child has a fever and they want to check check them with the contactless thermometer, they can do so. And then if they indeed register a fever, then they can send them on up to the clinic. Of course, if they have other symptoms, they're going to send them on to the clinic. But we've developed a pass that'll be an easy communication tool for the teacher to send with the student.
Mr. Hollett had a question.
Yes, and this is a sensitive one as well, but I'm being asked.
Sure.
So some parents are concerned about access to the schools. Can anyone speak to that so that?
Okay, access. Mr. Hollis asking about accessing schools. So right now, what we have asked that we limit visitors and that we do not have parents in and out of the schools. They stop at the front office, and if they need to see their child, then we bring their child to them instead of them going into the school. So it's not that they're not going to have access to their child. It's just we're not going to allow them past the front office just to protect everyone.
What about those parents who come in and make copies and help out and do stuff?
It's well, actually, Mr. Gilbert, weigh in on that. We've talked about this at length. If they have regular volunteers who are in this, it's kind of like we want to create the same bubble. Yes. So if those people would have to be screened every day. Okay. So they would have to go through that list of questions, have their temperature checked because they are outsiders. We're not, but we're still going to try to limit. But Mr. Gilbert or Dr. Blankenship, do you want to add anything to that?
I'd be happy to. We have a screening checklist that all of our schools and office buildings use, and that's what would be used with our volunteers. I will say that our Lindsay's Legacy mentors will continue to mentor students. We feel like they are essential volunteers in our schools, but they'll follow those same screening procedures as our other regular volunteers would.
I would also add that our vendors will go through the same questions and the same restrictions.
Parents will not be walking children in at all. Good.
No. How about our subs? Will they go through these screenings, I'm assuming also?
Yes, ma'am. When they arrive at the school, we will have them go through the screening as well. And that's something that we haven't addressed with our schools yet, but we are providing some training information that'll be ready for them to present to their school faculties and staff as appropriate. We'll have that ready for them to disseminate Monday morning, and that'll be part of it.
Any others? Great questions. All right, Dr. Blankenship, you are right. This has been a heavy load, but it's very, very thoughtful. And I think the most important message that I want our board to rest assured of is we're being very, very deliberate and thoughtful and not making decisions in a vacuum. We're really looking through all of the information that we have from all the various agencies. And we do have a task force that has met multiple times, and it includes a representative from the EMS, it includes a parent representative, and it includes teacher and leader representatives, as well as Brian Bullock, our local representative, and Board of Health representative. So this task force is who's really kind of made these recommendations, and then Rhonda has been the heart with Dr. Blankenship. So thank you again. Lots of great work there. Mr. Nicholson, anything happening with teaching and learning?
Hey, Dr. Howard.
Yes.
I'm sorry. There's one more question here. They heard that a principal told them if the teacher tests positive, then there would be a substitute, but that class wouldn't have to quarantine. Maybe so, maybe no. It depends. It depends on when the teacher tested positive, when they had contact. If it was outside of, there's a lot of different factors that figure into that. I think the important piece to know about that is what we have told our schools, our leaders, is that if they have a teacher that has to quarantine because they have potentially been exposed to someone who was confirmed positive, or they tested positive and were asymptomatic, and it's not a situation where the whole class has to quarantine or some of the students have to quarantine, we're going to provide them a sub to be in the room, and as long as the teacher feels well enough to teach, they will be able to teach their class virtually. We feel like that's the better situation to keep that instruction going, but then the sub would be in the classroom to help monitor and facilitate any work that goes on in the classroom.
Dr. Blankenship, I would add, there are reasons why the teacher may be perfectly healthy, but they're quarantining because of an exposure. So that is also a reason why we would want that teacher to be able to quarantine at home, still teach the kids, but then provide a sub, because they're not always home because they're sick. Sometimes they're home.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Excellent question. All right. Mr. Nicholson.
Well, good evening. Despite the fact that the world is in a very crazy place, Jackson County Schools are still committed to providing quality academic experiences that are personalized and prepare students for the future. And so we just wanted to highlight the fact that we know how to do that in person. We do that really well. Our teachers are experts, masters at this, but we're going to be doing that in 2 learning environments this year. And so we wanted to showcase a little bit about what's going on with distance learning. We've kept you up to speed regarding parent choice first through the surveys and the learning environments. But Dr. Howard, would we still like to show this video before I get into highlighting some of the work that we're doing? Is that our plan?
I think so. I think it's important that our board knows, especially because this was not provided for all families. This was only provided for families who selected distance learning.
Absolutely, and I just didn't know if we had the technical details worked out so that we could see it, but if we could, I would love to be able to showcase this.
Let's find out.
All right.
And is it still about 18% that have chosen to stay home?
Whoa. I'm sorry.
That's me.
Yeah, hold on just a minute.
Scared us too.
I understand.
You jinxed me, Todd. Let me just close out of this. All right, let's go back.
Miss Wheeler, we have 1,600 students who have selected this environment.
Just go full screen.
Just had this down, Rusty. We had this. Rusty.
Option for the 2020-2021 school year.
There we go.
For all students in kindergarten to the 12th grade. Students and parents opting into our distance learning program are required to participate in our virtual distance learning orientation. This orientation video will walk you through the following: design of our distance learning program, special considerations, student and parent expectations, documents that you need to read, and the submission process for your final agreement. Jackson County School System believes in creating remarkable learning experiences for each student, no matter the time and place. We have designed our distance learning program for this school year to be as remarkable as our in-person experience by providing a multi-tiered, personalized approach to virtual teaching and learning. Unlike the remote learning that took place last spring, distance learning instruction expectations will resemble in-person instruction. It will take place Monday through Friday during regularly scheduled school hours, and just like in the regular classroom, daily attendance will be recorded and grades are based on active performance. Additionally, in order to provide quality instruction, Jackson County Schools will staff distance learning classes with existing Jackson County teachers wherever possible. Instructional models through our distance learning program will vary upon the school level. At the elementary school level, there will be a strong emphasis on teacher-facilitated direct instruction, often with live virtual sessions. Independent work, as well as group and project work, will also be used, but even in those instances, a teacher will be available to answer questions or will schedule some follow-up time with your student to discuss independent and group work. At the middle school level, students will receive some teacher-facilitated instruction, but students will also experience an increased expectation for completing independent and small group work. In some cases, students might experience a 50-50 blend between direct instruction and independent or small group work. Teachers will always be available for support through scheduled virtual office hours, emails, and remind messages. At the high school level, the balance between direct instruction and independent work will vary by course as part of our multi-tiered approach to serving the needs of our students. We're working hard to ensure that as many courses as possible are available to our high school students. To accommodate larger class sizes and an increased number of classes, instruction at the high school level may rely more heavily on self-paced independent work and group work. But we will ensure that all courses include a Jackson County School System teacher, either providing direct instruction or available for support or tutoring throughout the school day. While we don't anticipate many barriers to participating in distance learning, here are a few important details you may want to consider. All the core academic classes will be available for all the grade levels. However, there will be limited opportunities for specialist classes at the elementary level, such as art, music, and physical education. Similarly, we will aim to offer as many high school lift courses and middle school connections classes as feasible, but with some limitations. If your student is eligible for and receives special education services with an IEP, online learning may affect how services are provided. Your student's IEP team will work to ensure that your student receives services to the most appropriate extent possible. Finally, due to scheduling restraints and available personnel, distance learning requires a minimum commitment of 1 semester. So this means that students who select distance learning for fall 2020 will remain in distance learning through December. They will then have the option of either continuing with distance learning from January 2021 through May, or returning back to their base school. Since distance learning will closely mirror the instructional day, reliable internet access is required at home in order to participate in virtual learning activity. If your student needs a computer, Jackson County Schools is happy to provide a Chromebook for each student. But parents must purchase a $25 protection plan per device in order to take home a Jackson County Schools issued Chromebook. Once a Chromebook is issued, parents will be responsible for picking up the Chromebook from their base school and provided a $25 deposit via cash, check, or the online program school pay. Students will then be held accountable for their Chromebook and must follow the acceptable use rules for student devices and associated technologies as outlined in the Student Code of Conduct and in the Jackson County Schools one-to-one handbook. Thank you so much for watching the Jackson County Schools Distance Learning Orientation video. Next, be sure to read the Jackson County Schools Distance Learning Handbook and the one-to-one Chromebook handbook for students and parents before you submit the Jackson County Schools Distance Learning Agreement form. We are incredibly excited to offer this optional learning environment to you and are committed to providing a remarkable learning experience for you and your students.
So I introduced that by referring back to our 3 goals of quality academic experiences, personalizing the learning, and preparing students for the future. You know, not to knock local districts because everybody's doing the best they can, but something that we are really striving to do in Jackson County is to make sure that distance learning is not subpar or second tier. And that comes at an expense of our teachers, our administrators, our teaching and learning staff to really think outside of the box. And I think, you know, we wouldn't do anything less than that for our students, but I'm just incredibly grateful and proud of the folks that have been the brain trust to make this happen. In that video there, you know, you saw that essentially what we're saying is that we are going to be able to provide as many possible experiences, and as it says, to mirror the instructional day. Now, obviously, there are some limitations. There are some things we can't do via distance learning, but we're really trying not to let the limitations become obstacles and barriers. We're trying to think of creative ways to overcome those scenarios. And so the last couple of weeks, we've been working with our principals and school level administrators. We've talked through a whole host of different scenarios on how we can make this happen. You know, many school systems, as I mentioned, are doing 100% self-paced. They're basically putting students on a canned program. We're not doing that. We're going to use some programs, but it's not going to be 100% self-paced. We're also not going to be able to go 100% mirroring the school day because we don't have the personnel to do that. But what we've really explored at the schools is a blended approach where we have some self-paced, some teacher-directed facilitated instruction, some hybrid models at the elementary, middle, and high, where you've got a teacher that is teaching some students in person, but then there are a handful of students that are tuning in via Google Meets. And then, you know, essentially what we've able to accomplish is, since personalization is one of our key goals, is that we are able to personalize the learning experience for students via distance learning. And so while every course might not look the same, the goals that guide us, those three that I've already mentioned, are the ones that make us kind of continue to strive to make sure that we're continually trying to achieve the excellence that we believe is possible via distance learning here in Jackson County. There's a handbook in there. I'm not going to read that to you. You have that. We have some orientation meetings with elementary, middle, and high. I think it's worth for you to know that not only are the models different at elementary, middle, and high, the curriculum expectations, the instruction, the time, that's all the same, but because we're really taking a personalized approach, some of our schools are doing something slightly different. And what we try to do is make sure that this had a minimal impact on personnel at the school level, and that we were able to maximize support for our families and our students that chose distance learning. Obviously, we have a lot of students also in face-to-face learning or in-person learning, but I want to pause there before we talk a little bit about that and see if you have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding the distance learning approach that we're taking.
I want to know about the STEM at West Jackson Middle School. If you were in the STEM program, or you able to be in the STEM program and the distance learning?
There. Nicholson, did you hear Mr. Clarisy asking about the STEAM program at West Middle?
I did. So they're doing their best to integrate. So at West Middle, not all of the West Middle approach is a little bit more of that hybrid where they have some teachers who are going to be teaching maybe 4 classes in person, and then they might have 2 classes that are distance learning. They have some classes where teachers are going to teach all of their 5 segments in person, and then during planning periods they're going to support distance learning. And so if you're in the STEM program, my understanding right now is that you might not have that STEAM teacher for distance learning, but they have committed to reserving that position for STEAM, so that if you've chosen distance learning for the fall, you can come right back in and move into that in person in January if you so choose, into that STEAM program. But I did talk to Dr. Conway the other day about the STEAM teachers are also looking for ways that they can integrate those students. The STEAM program is a little unique in that there's a lot of project-based learning, and I think the concern there was how do you integrate the students into those projects when there's a high level of collaboration. But honestly, if anybody can pull it off, it's our STEAM teachers. I mean, they're our most creative. I love all of our teachers, but they were very early on with being, as we refer to as, incubators of innovation. So I think they will find ways to include those students, but right now the STEAM teachers are not necessarily guaranteed to be their direct instructors. That answer your question, Mr. Clarisy?
I think so. I might come over Monday night to the meeting and we can explain that a little further.
Just walk around the cul-de-sac. I'm right here.
Special education. So we're still allowing that in person as we normally do.
Absolutely. And regardless of their environment, their accommodations may be adjusted because it's a different environment, but Tammy Simpson-Shirley and Dr. Teague and Becky Edge are doing a great job, and they're meeting with each family to make arrangements for those environments. So.
We have special education students in both. I will tell you that in some of our adaptive or higher needs classes, it's more of the hybrid model because those teachers are highly specialized. So if they have 8 kids in the class and one of those students is distance, it was easier for them, not easier, but it was better for the student to stay with that particular teacher. Our special ed team did an amazing job in the spring. And what I didn't point out is what we did in the spring is definitely not the same thing as what we're doing with distance learning, but they did an amazing job in the spring of making sure that we're adhering to the IEPs. And as Dr. Howard said, we will have to revisit those for all of the families that have selected distance learning, and making sure that we can either provide what is already outlined or we have to make some amendments based on families who have chosen a distance learning environment. But absolutely, we'll adhere to what the students need.
So with the 1,600 students, have we figured out exactly which teachers are doing distance learning and which ones are not?
So Todd, I'll talk through this a little bit because I'm right here, and then you feel free to pipe in. But we worked with the principals and we presented 2 models. The first model, before we knew how many students might be interested, was okay, we'll just let kids sign up, and whoever signs up for the virtual academy, we'll just pull those kids off and we'll handle those students. We'll teach them. But the way that we'll do that is we will determine where the staff would need to come from based on where the students came from, because we have to reduce staff so at the end of the day, we had more people than we thought we would in remote learning. And so that would have equated to pulling about 19 teachers from elementary alone to accommodate students in an academy approach. Well, that meant then that we were going to be going back to our principals and saying, look, there's this many kids who need to be in an academy, so we're going to have to take this many teachers to do the academy. We went back to the principals and said, that's still an option, but another option is for you to look at who those kids are. And for example, at West Elementary, you've got 27 5th graders. Is there a 5th grade teacher who wants to say, I'll do that, those are our kids, and you reorganize rosters? And so now you've just got one teacher who has taken those kids. What I think is a major shout out is that our principals did not do what was easy. They did what was best. And because they were willing to kind of figure that out on their own with their kids, early on, we were not going to be able to offer the numbers of honors courses at the high school. We weren't going to be able to offer some of the AP courses if the student was based at home. But because the high schools, elementary and middle, in different ways, were very creative, they basically did a reschedule of every single child. The entire master schedule was reworked in about six days. So that's usually a whole summer's worth of work. So at the elementary, it looks different. It looks different at the middle, and at the high school, it looks different. But the high school was where we really had a grave concern about some of the kids who really, for appropriate reasons, needed to be remote, but we weren't going to be able to offer honors courses. And if I got some communication, that is the communication plea that I got from the most parents, is please try to find a way for our kids to be able to have, and that's fair. And so that's when we went back to our principals, this is them. I mean, they said, okay, we'll do it. So yes, and Todd, are any other pieces of that we need to make sure the board understands?
You did an excellent job explaining. I just think that what's important to understand is that not every course will be delivered in the same manner. So with the honors, I got this a lot of emails about that too, rightfully so. These children have worked very hard for that. And if they have to be in a distance learning environment, we shouldn't preclude them from those honors courses. So at the high school, I might have one class where I tune in every day and the teacher is teaching some kids in person. And I'm amongst 5, 6, 8 other folks that are learning digitally, and we're learning side by side. I might have another course though where I'm working a little bit more independently, and I have a teacher who I have access to. It's an AB schedule, so I have access to them every other day, either for direct instruction or tutoring. And what our high schools have done, as Dr. Howard mentioned, is figure out how can we maximize the number of course offerings. And what we've determined is if you take a one-size-fits-all approach, you can't do that. So it really is that personalized approach, and it's by course and then it's by student to make sure that if this is the path you're on, you might have a different way of experiencing distance learning, but it's the best possible way that we can make sure that we can expand the number of offerings. We haven't talked a lot about Edmentum courseware, which is a platform that we've purchased that it has Georgia Line courses, that also has AP courses, that has CTAE courses. There's no replacing a teacher ever, period, exclamation point. I mean, there's never replacing a teacher, but to be able to supplement with a robust online offering that students can work at their own pace for portions of the day or the week and then meet with teachers, that's also an option that is being utilized at both the middle and high school. So it's not, when I started saying that some of our systems are just putting them on a platform and that's it, we're not doing that. We're really trying to personalize. Not trying. We are personalizing the experience for the students. And so I echo Dr. Howard's sentiments for our principals, our teachers. And in fact, I feel like we should say that early on at the high school level, we had conversations around how we probably can't offer band and ROTC and some of these other offerings. And when Mr. Wester and Ms. Palmer met with their teachers, the teachers of those content areas said, we want to be able to work with those kids. And so our teachers are finding ways that they can include the distance learners. They've gone way above and beyond anything we've asked of them. And it's by their choice because they are trying to make sure they meet the needs of the students. And so I just feel like we need to echo 1,000 times over.
Yeah, agreed.
So our virtual teachers will be in the building, or will they be at home?
They'll be in the building.
In the building. Yeah.
And we do have some teachers that are teaching both face-to-face and virtual.
Yes, ma'am. By course.
Yeah.
Like they may be teaching 2 courses in person, and then they may teach one that's virtual.
Yeah.
In their course area that.
Right.
Yeah.
So Mr. Hollett had a question for clarification, Mr. Hollett, regarding the $25 fee, and is that correct in the
Yes.
Chromebook?
Yes. So did you see I sent an email to you, but I know you're busy. Sent it earlier. So have you gotten any feedback about that $25 fee?
Not necessarily, but I can anticipate what you're referring to. So we have, this is not new. Jackson County High School has been 1-to-1. West Middle has been 1-to-1. East High is most recently 1-to-1, and East Middle is very close behind. That $25 fee in our handbook covers the accidental damage. The whole idea is so that if something does happen to a device that's accident, we can put another device into the hands of that student so that learning does not stop. I will tell you that internally, we have, let me put it this way, since this is broadcasted, we would never prevent somebody from having the opportunity to learn. We will work with people because the whole idea is that we are here to provide a service. And so I can tell you Jackson County High School has been doing this longer than any other school, and they've worked with every family in every possible way to make sure that students and families can have access to a device. Does that, I'm not in my email right now, but does that answer your question?
That speaks to exactly what the email said. Thank you.
Absolutely. Happy to answer. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't normally respond to text, but Ms. Palmer just texted me, and they have finished 8 of their 8th grade orientations and said that they've gone wonderfully and that folks were very respectful and understanding of the mask request. So that's good news.
Right.
So I have one last question. So has anyone tried to join virtual learning after the cutoff date?
I couldn't hear you, Mr. Hollett.
Yeah.
Good response, Mr. Nichols.
Yes, and
Yes, they have.
And are they allowed in? Is that?
We have asked the principals to work with individuals on a one-on-one basis, and it's not in this world. There's really nothing that's absolute.
Yes.
If they can work it out and accommodate that person, but the request is that if you signed up for in person, you're in person. If you signed up for online, but again, our school leaders are contortionists. I mean, they are just going out of their way to try to make it work. So I think what they're looking at is what's going to be best for that kid. And quite honestly, they've made individual phone calls to families. And there are some kids who, on the front end, selected virtual learning, and the principals know that they struggled with that last spring. So they're reaching out to the parents and saying, okay, we got to figure out if this is really what you want to do, how can we do it better? Because it didn't work very well for you last year. So they are just, like I said, they're living up way beyond expectations.
And I know that for them, for teachers, for all, everyone's doing much more than.
Yes. And not begrudgingly, they want to do it. It's just a lot to do in a short time.
And that's it. Yes. So I'm sure that's.
And to that point, Mr. Hollett, obviously, if there's a health concern, then that goes to the top of our list. As Dr. Howard said, our principals had to do something in 6 days that they normally do over the course of the summer. So we do pride ourselves on personalization and flexibility, but we did ask for that semester commitment, and we realized that the world is changing not just daily but hourly. But it's a really heavy ask to ask our schools to change schedules every day and every day and every day. And so, as Dr. Howard mentioned, health concerns without a doubt. And then, let's just give this a try. Let's see how this works. We will never set up a child for failure. So if something is not working, then we're going to figure out a way to make sure they're successful. That's our commitment, whether it's in person or distance learning.
So the obvious statement too is that we asked for that to be submitted. At the time they submitted it, we were requiring teachers to wear a mask and asking students to wear a mask, but we weren't really expecting. And so when we said, look, the numbers look bad, we're really gonna expect that our students, that's when some parents wanted to, and those are the ones that we just dealt with on an individual basis, because some of them have legitimate concerns, health reasons and so forth. All right, in-person learning, I think maybe you covered that. Are we to the Chromebook update?
I think so. And, the Chromebooks, we've talked about this before. We're so grateful for those devices. And my goodness, they allowed us to continue learning last spring. And obviously with 1,600 students, this is going to be critical. It's probably worth pointing out that not all 1,600 students need a device. I think we've heard from 1,000 out of those 1,600, maybe 1,100 out of those 1,600, and about 750, I'd have to go back and check, need devices. But we already have issued out devices at East High and Jackson County High School. But as I've mentioned before, Chromebooks have a limited lifespan. I want to thank the technology team for thinking very flexibly. We knew that those devices that we purchased 5 and 6 years ago, it's not as if they die and they can no longer be used. They can't be managed in our system. And the biggest thing that they can't be managed with is for assessment. But as we looked through last spring and realized that we were trying to give devices not just to 2nd through 12th graders, which is our one-to-one initiative, our schools were trying to give out kindergartners and 1st graders devices, and that's not been a part of our plan. We looked at it and said, well, there is a possibility that these devices that can't be managed for assessment could possibly be used at kindergarten and 1st grade. And so we already were prepared to ask you for your blessing for that continued annual purchase of devices. Usually we ask for that in the spring, and working with Anna, she's worked it out with the cash flow that if we could do that in the fall, that would help us get not only up to our one-to-one initiative with 2nd through 12th, it would actually help us if we have to go to distance learning for everyone, or remote learning for that matter. It would help us to be able to provide devices to kindergarten and 1st graders who need it. So it's not a different ask than we were already mentioning to you. The timing is a little bit different, but because our SPLOST monthly revenue is doing really well, we're hoping that we can get your blessing to spend. And I believe, Dr. Howard and Ms. Dodge, we have that up to 200,000, which would get us between 500 and maybe even a max of 625 devices. If the board is interested, I can give you percentages of what schools are close to one-to-one. But really what we're asking for is to spend that money earlier in the year. Part of what I need to let you know too is that Chromebook delivery is not 2 to 4 weeks out like it used to be. It's a potential of 4 months out. And so Mr. Summer and his team already have a quote ready to go. So we're really trying to get ahead of other school systems in that purchase, if that's a possibility with your blessing.
So each year we usually spend between 200 and 300,000 to try to. It's a replacement cycle as well. So the action item would be granting permission for us to spend up to $200,000 to purchase an additional 500 Chromebooks for student use. So that's for your consideration. We can purchase it out of SPLOST. Quite honestly, Anna's on here. We could add it to the general fund budget if you prefer not to use SPLOST. But traditionally, we've purchased it out of SPLOST. So.
And I think with our SPLOST revenues and the way that they've been the last few months, that we can easily cover that in SPLOST. But two, I was going to mention that even with the 200,000, that's still. It'll still allow for maybe in the spring or later in the year if we see that we need more devices or replacement of devices, it'll still allow $50,000 to $75,000 in funding to do that later on.
Because you have money for replacement in our SPLOST cash flow already. We have that built in.
Yes, every year.
So it's built into our SPLOST cash flow.
And it's probably worth adding, Dr. Howard, that our schools that are one-to-one, West Middle, Jackson County High School, East High, as they grow, every year we need to add. It's not thousands of devices, but you've got anywhere between 50 to 150 devices based on the growth. So that we've right now West Middle and Jackson County High School, who have been at one-to-one, their current enrollment now they're not at one-to-one. So the devices that we have that we're about to deploy this fall, we need to put back into them, because you can't teach in a one-to-one environment if all students don't have that. So it's always kind of I mean, we're in a great place, honestly, but it's you know, we will, if this is something we want to continue as a school system, we will always have to be purchasing additional devices for growth and additional devices for replacement. But I you know, again, we would appreciate this kind of front loading it with the spring purchase versus fall versus waiting to the spring.
Yeah. May I ask a question, Todd, please?
Yes, sir.
So 200,000 gets us 500 Chromebooks.
It would actually, at the rate right now, it would get us a little bit more than that. It'd probably get us closer to 600. They're around $320, but that's with the license, with the insurance, and these are more ruggedized too.
So, and this is just me thinking.
Sure.
What, you know, that's a good deal really for those things, right? So, is there an option for? I mean, I'm assuming we're getting a better rate than what the public can get. So is there an option that as a parent, I say, hey, Mr. Nicholson, I can pay for that straight up. That's, you know, frees up, I don't know, just thinking out loud before.
Yeah, we've gone that, we've extended that offer in the past.
Yeah.
We haven't done it recently, but that is something that we've explored in the past.
And I asked, I was recently looking at all my kids when I'm, you know, I spent $1,000 on these. It's easy.
Yeah.
So, you know, that
all MacBook.
Yeah. That's more like 5.
You know, with to answer your question, with distance learning, you know, we don't have, it's not one-to-one because we do have many parents that already have devices. I know Mr. Summer gets phone calls, our principals get phone calls, you know, what kind of device do I need for my child? And we certainly, I say that, I mean, I know that we've looked at it in the past in terms of just kind of bundling that in. I think it was about 4 years ago that we did that, where we did a bulk purchase and then said, if you would like to buy your own personal device, the kind of the catch to that is whether it's your personal device or not, you're still logging in with a Jackson County login. So we still monitor that. We still, all of the safety goes on it, which also means all of the monitoring, which I, as a parent, I would appreciate. But it's your device, but it is still, it's still subject to being monitored, because we just need to do that. And some people that's a safety blanket, and some people it's well, I don't know if I want to do that or not.
Yes. Okay. And so that answers my question.
Yeah.
All right, I think Mr. Schultz is with us, and each year he brings to us his Perkins for consideration. So, Mr. Schultz, you want to speak?
Sure. Good evening, and I'm the one everybody's excited to see because I'm last on the agenda. But
save best right? Teach and learn.
Every year, CTA is required to get local board approval for the Perkins and use of the Perkins funds. And I guess we want to look here too. I was just going through this year. We are going to have a brand new Perkins. They're not actually in order, Dr. Howard. But I'll be honest, we don't have to jump through everything. This is a brand new year for Perkins. We're having Perkins 5. So we actually had to do a Jackson County consolidated application for our Perkins 5 application. It is in there. It's 44 pages long. And if you want to put yourself to sleep tonight, you can please read that and look at it. And, you know, there's a lot of good stuff in there. But one of the exciting things is the work that we did with Empower. it really matches and mirrors what the new Perkins 5 goes through. It's working with businesses and industries. I put in there the high demand industries. It really looks at the high demand industries for Georgia and our community. It's really trying to do what's best for our community. So, you know, there's more documents in there, and I encourage you to look at them. They're really, it's exciting when you look at our pathways that we have right now. The majority of them fit in within that high demand areas right now in the state. And the pathways that we're looking at implementing and empower, that only just puts the icing on the cake of really hitting those upper level mechatronics and engineering and other programs that we're really excited about starting up this next, not this year, but in 2021 and 22. But it also looks, the Perkins 5 Consolidated app, it looks at equity, seeing what every student really needs to be successful. And successful is different in different students. And this is exciting too, just right here, the core indicators. Dr. Howard, I remember she's probably remembered the core indicators that we've had. That's something that Perkins has always looked at and our performance. I'm excited to say that Jackson County has met every core indicator that we have, and all of our targets are really above the state. So we're doing it. Our teachers are really doing a fabulous job. I'm excited with them. One of the areas which probably is a little bit different this past year is we do an end of pathway assessments for students at the end of their pathway that they take. Because of COVID went through, we didn't do all of the end of pathway assessments this past year, but it was exciting though. We actually had students come in June and July to our school one at a time, and we tested those students for some of those industry careers. We had students that left our high school with certified clinical medical assistant certifications that could go right into a hospital. So, you know, it was really exciting to see those students come back, and that was their choice. They could have said, I'm done, you know, be done with the year, but they wanted those certifications, and they see the relevance of these certifications helping them on for their future.
Todd, I would add there that you and those teachers wanted that for those kids too. So those teachers came in or Todd came in and it made sure that those kids had access to it, because that didn't happen everywhere. So
yeah, we appreciate Ted and Josh and all them that helped us getting us into the buildings and letting the kids, you know, we followed the procedures that they had to wear and all that stuff too. But we're doing it for the kids, and that's the most important thing. Some of the things too, I guess you had it at the very beginning on the allotment. Our FTE is steadily growing in CTA, just like it is in all of our FTE for our whole system. But one of the things that I always kind of like to share this is, you know, we get the FTE that helps with our teachers. Right now we've got 20.85 that it funds, and I'll be honest, we're just a little bit under that, really, in terms of the teachers that we have. But we also help fund a counselor. We're at almost a full counselor that CTA funds, and then also just like almost 38% of what a tech specialist salary goes in there too. So, you know, it's exciting. It's continually to grow. I'm looking forward to even as we go further. One of the things too, I was wanting to show, and I'm kind of running through it a little quick. You're welcome to go back and look at these again too, is it's the Career Technical Student Organizations, and it's called the CTSOs. We always call it, we have to abbreviate everything in education. But on the student organizations, these are paid student members of students in our CTA classes. One of the things that most people don't understand is the CTSOs, those are not extracurricular organizations. CTSOs are actually intracurricular, meaning that they are actually taught within the curriculum of each of the courses that we teach. So but it is up to the students if they want to actually join membership of those organizations. And it was exciting. We've seen a steady growth over the past few years of the number of students that are actually joining these career technical student organizations. At the top of the page, you can see, I mean, FFA is one of our largest student organizations that we have. HOSA is for our healthcare science. FCCLA is our family consumer science. Skills USA does our audio video, and it also does our construction and some of our technology type programs. FBLA, we still have FBLA with our computer science programs. We started Georgia First last year. We actually had teams compete at East Jackson, and we've actually got teams set up to meet and start with at East Jackson and Jackson County for this next year. Our middle schools are actually working with them too, but we had a tremendous boost in our Georgia First program and the robotics. So some exciting things there. At the bottom, these aren't actually like state organizations, but the Georgia AIA, that is the Architectural Institute of America, I think it is. And Donnie might be able to tell me if I'm saying that wrong, but our architectural and engineering teacher, Molly Neufeld, she has students compete in the AIA. We had a student that won, this was a year ago, that won one of the scholarships at Georgia Tech there and was sent to Europe, and actually like about a $7,000 scholarship that he got to actually go train over there. And thank goodness it was the year before COVID. So, you know, he got to go, and just the experiences that they're getting, they get to meet with architects in the whole state of Georgia, and it's great. Our JRTC programs are growing steadily. I believe we've got about 130 at East Jackson and around 170 of them at Jackson County. So we're almost talking 300 students that are JRTC programs right now too. I didn't put it on there, but we've also got work-based learning is also in there. Dr. Lawrence has been doing both schools this past year, and we are excited. We've got Miss Kate Wooten is coming over at East Jackson. She's going to be doing part-time or half-time at East Jackson with work-based learning, and Dr. Lawrence is going to be doing it at Jackson County and working with Kate too. So lots of exciting things that are happening in CTAE. I actually just got our grant notifications today. Our state, and it's not in there right now, but our state is about a month behind on sending all of these notifications and things like that from Perkins and all of our state grants. We're something that was exciting. We found out yesterday, we even got some CARES money that went towards some of the extended day and the extended year, and also for all of our ag teachers and CTA teachers that are also in there. And just some good stuff that's happening. But I guess if there's any questions, I kind of ran through that quick. Our goal is to work, to prepare all kids for college, career, and life. And I always say it's not college and career or career, because you should be really going to college for a career. So we're hoping, probably if it's a goal of ours in the future, I would love to try to work more towards a career counselor, somebody who's helping students finding some of these different careers that they have a passion for, and then actually lining out their college or educational purposes, whatever they need, how to get towards that career. I think that's something that we'll need. And I think we've even discussed having that at Empower as we get going in the near future. But some of the questions too, somebody asked me today, and I forgot to put on this, about career technical student organizations for our CTSOs. I mean, what are we going to do? There are most all of the competitions, things like that have all gone virtual for this year. We're in discussion with all of the teachers that are having extended day. We're going to try to do some type of a community-based competition for all of our CTSOs bring in some community members to be judges and things like that too, because we really need the partnerships with these business and industries, and we want to say how good our students are doing. That's, you know, our family consumer science teachers, there's questions on COVID. We talked today, how are they going to do their labs? And they're going to follow the guidelines for restaurants for the whole state of Georgia, how they run COVID, you know, throughout everything too. So all of our teachers are learning and pivoting as everybody else is, but we're excited and we're looking forward to another great year.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz, and that will be an action item for Monday, because each year the board has to approve the Perkins plan. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to Mr. Schultz. And thank you, Mr. Nicholson. To follow up, our teaching and learning team has worked tirelessly this summer. I don't know of anybody in the state who's been able to pull off what this group and our principals have been able to pull off. And I see some faces up there that yesterday and Tuesday, Mr. Nicholson and his team, they had 5 different monitors going with so many different professional learnings, and our teachers have been so engaged, and so I'm grateful to the teachers for that as well. So we've kept you a long time tonight. Are there any questions?
Can I say one thing?
Please, yes, ma'am.
I am totally blown away at all of the work that the administration and the teachers, everything that they've done this summer for our children to, you know, this is something we've never seen before. Right. And I am totally impressed with all this happened. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank that. And so I hear Miss Anglin thanking you all, because it is nobody, you know, you could have taken 2 paths. You could have just said, look, we're checking out for a little bit. But our folks sat up and said, boy, this is an opportunity. And they have put it into overdrive.
Love for children.
I just wanted to tell Mr. Schultz, I like the career counselor. I think that a lot of people struggle with that. You know how many undecided there are in all colleges, technical and not. So I really like that a lot. So thank you for bringing that up.
I was sending an email, and I'll finish sending it, but I was curious to hear how Shannon Lawrence is doing work-based learning and getting folks planning for the school year. And this is usually a big time.
It is.
To start your year, and we ended kind of rough, and so I'm curious about that.
So I've seen some emails, but I think Mr. Schultz is probably the most appropriate person to respond to that.
Okay.
I did look, and I haven't even had a chance to respond to Todd, but we're looking at a waiver basically for families. So speak to that, Todd, if you don't mind.
Yeah, there's still a lot of students that are doing the work-based learning. It's really not dropped off as much that you might think. We still had students that worked many jobs all the way through the end of last year. Some of the business industries, they did stop the work-based learning. I think, for example, Kubota went off for just a little while, where it wasn't that they wanted to, but they just thought that was the safest thing to do and things like that. But we are working on putting together a COVID waiver, so that the parents and the students and the business can understand that, you know, what we're trying to help every way we can. But they're hitting the ground running. The numbers that we've got of students doing work-based learning this year is the largest we've ever had it. One of the things, you know, like we always talk about, we've got students have opportunities to graduate early, theoretically, but because they're taking classes earlier. But I'm really excited about this because they have the opportunity to do dual enrollment. They have the opportunity to go actually try out the career. If they want to go to a college for something, they can actually go do a work-based learning, you know, site and see if that's really what they want to do before they go to a college for 4 to 6 or 8 years or whatever. So they're taking advantage of it, and our high schools are also encouraging students in that. You know, if we just graduated them and sent them out right as soon as they finished everything, I don't think they have the same opportunities. If they tried to go to a job, they would have a work-based learning mentor that's right there helping them. I mean, everybody makes some bad mistakes sometimes right when they come out, and they don't know about the alarm clocks all the time, etc. But if they have a mentor there watching them, kind of holding their feet and holding them accountable, they seem to be more successful. So business and industry are loving them too.
You don't think that, so what I hear you saying is the numbers they were not negatively impacted. We're still growing work-based learning student placements. Great.
From what I'm seeing, I don't see any major impact right now. There might be a few, but I think it'll probably even grow as it gets going, as kids take opportunities to do other type of online or dual enrollment or anything like that. I think it will continue to grow.
We didn't speak a whole lot to the programming at Empower. We spoke to the renovation, which is amazing. We'll schedule a time if you want to go see it, or you can go to the high school and see it and talk to Mr. Wester. I'm sure he'll welcome you. But I think Empower is going to get a shot in the arm as a result of this, because kids are so anxious to be able to get up and be engaged in something. So while there's a lot of negatives, that's going to be a positive unintended outcome, I think. So. Sure. All right, that was a lot, but welcome to stay as long as you want. Any questions that you have, we'll try to attend to them.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I don't think so. I just want to say also thank you to everybody, to all of our employees, all of our educators, and our parents that are partnering with us to wade through this new challenging times that we're all facing right now. So we've got a lot to be grateful for, and appreciate all the hard work and the dedication that we are seeing here. So, all right, well, if there's no other comments or questions, then we will adjourn, and then we are going to be
we will be in a Google Meet, so we can have up to 250 participants, and that will be on Monday, and I'll send that to you. So the action items will be the Perkins, the SPLOST, if you're supportive of that, and then of course our millage rate recommendation to roll back. Those will be the three major items, and of course personnel as always.
Sure.
My last question for adjournment.
Yeah.
So, if people have questions,
yes,
what is the best way for them to get them addressed during that meeting? Through us, through you, through
the meeting on Monday?
Yes, ma'am.
We will have it on Google, and we'll admit people in, and then we'll leave this chat box open like that. So, for example, this gentleman, I don't know him, but he's a community member.
Okay.
And we can take up to 250, and then of course we'll be YouTubing it as well. So if we exceed 250, then we can monitor questions on YouTube.
There won't be a formal public question process. It'll just be they need to do the chat box. Yeah.
Well, that's right. That'll be be their way to ask is to.
I think they've answered a lot of questions off the chat box.
Yeah, we've done that before too.
And I like that.
I do too. I think that's good.
Too, so, to kind of, helps clarify.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So are we meeting here?
We're going to be homebound.
It'll be Google Meets. She'll send us the link.
Okay, I'll send
you.
So the teachers that are doing some double duty, I heard a little bit of that tonight, that are teaching face-to-face and taking the planning period and doing the remote. We thinking that, I guess that's going to go the whole semester.
It will, but we have, Anna has given us a set aside for what we call an additional work agreement. So those people that are working beyond their normal day are getting additional work agreements, and so they're being compensated for that. And they did it voluntarily. They wanted to. I mean, especially like band folks, they don't want to lose touch with those kids, so they said they wanted to do it during their planning, and in those types of situations we're offering them.
How much of that roughly do you think we're gonna have? I'm not worried about the money. I'm just
about how many people we've got that are doing that.
I'm a little concerned about that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as many as you think, but look, one of the things that, for the most part of the high school, and I see Mr. Wester is still on here, so you could help clarify that. And I don't think Ms. Palm, because she had some parent meetings tonight, but for the most part, those high schools have done a masterful job of freeing that teacher up for that period. So they may be teaching that or teaching several classes, but they're not teaching a face-to-face class. So Mr. Wester, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, ma'am. In many of the cases, we were able to free up a period based on the number of students in that course or that subject who had chosen distance learning. We could condense a class, and so that teacher actually loses a face-to-face section, if you will, of instruction, but then would provide support for facilitation for online learning during that period. And then what we do have is several of our teachers agreed to allow students to come in a hybrid situation via digital. So they're teaching kids face-to-face, but then they have a few kids coming in and joining the class virtually. And so it doesn't really interrupt what they're doing already, and those kids are part of their class. So if they do come back in January, they're still part of the same class. And our teachers all agreed to take on those roles. We did not have to impose that upon anybody. It was all by volunteer. So really, I guess you could say nobody took on more, they just took on different, if that makes sense.
Exchange, yeah.
So they lost kids face to face, and so we were either able to condense their schedule a little bit, and they took on some kids virtually that way, or we were able to just bring the kids virtually into their classroom because they felt like their manner of teaching or the way they were going to construct their classes would allow for that to happen easily, and that they could support the kids from home while they were supporting kids in face-to-face instruction at the same time.
That's good.
Well, is there a breakdown of the number of kids that are doing distance learning by school somewhere? So we
absolutely,
we have that.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, Jackson County's at about 330 right now, I believe, that are distance.
Okay.
Mr. Nicholson, maybe you could download that into a PDF protecting the individual names and just give numbers for, so if you don't mind.
Absolutely. We've got that easily accessible. And I'd add to Mr. Wester absolutely what he just said. And the elementary model is different in that most of the teachers that are teaching distance are just teaching distance. And middle school is kind of a blend of what Mr. Wester said. You've got some that are teaching some face-to-face, some hybrid. So it's, while we have a lot of teachers that are going to be doing this, it's not, because our concern was that we didn't want to tax our teachers and put so much on them that I mean, it's already going to be difficult. I mean, this is a different, strange, uncertain world. So to echo his sentiments that our principals have done a fantastic job of putting this out there and asking which teachers are interested. And we've got several teachers that early on with a survey that Dr. Blankenship shared of folks that were just interested last year, piqued a curiosity in them, and they really thrived in this distance learning environment. So, but I can get that information for you, and we can share that easily, no problem.
And one more thing I would add, Dr. Howard, too, is that the enrollment numbers that we shared, that's combined. That's not just in-person enrollment projections. That is total in-person and distance.
Right. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Very good. Excellent questions. I can't tell you how much I appreciate y'all's engagement. We've been here for 2 hours and 27 minutes, and you have stayed with us. So thank you very much.
Not everybody gets to watch Todd Emerson wear a lampshade as a hat.
Yeah. Talked to a parent from Westside that was very pleased that their kid's going to be in class, and they were happy at the class size.
Oh, good.
So, you know, that's
kind of one thing where I was going with more than what the numbers were. I was wondering what, you know, I'm sure there's going to be some winners.
Yeah.
And some.
Yeah, not some. Yeah.
Yeah, not so.
Yeah. Yes.
We won't call it.
Going on. Yeah, after it all gets started.
That's exactly right.
There'll be some things to change.
There's going to be some, some tweaking to do.
That's always
absolutely.
true.
That's just part of it.
Ted has said that multiple times that, you know, it'll take us the first 3 to 5 days, and we won't have to redo everything, but we'll have to make tweaks.
That's right. And that's just normal. That's just normal. Just on this page right here.
So, Ms. Wheeler, I don't know if you want to take a formal, or did we formally adjourn?
Well, I just said that we were going to adjourn, but then we decided. So we will at this time adjourn and see folks on Monday night. Okay.